Learning should be a panacea. You should be safe in Eretz Yisrael for Shlema for many years. I'm going to start Lamed days and days on the bottom. It's better two dots. 9 lines up. Okay, so the Mishnah says that they bring the Kohen Gadol, or they bring to the Kohen Gadol the Korban Tamid. This is after he went to the mikveh, but it's just so Kartzu. It says he was Kartzu. So what is Kartzu? My Kartzu, the Gemara asks right away. Amar Ula. Ula's our traveler. He says, Lishna Diktalahu. It actually means killing. He killed it. Amar Nachman Bar Yitzchak Mikra. Where do you see this? It says Egla Yefei Mitzrayim, a calf, a nice mouth is Egypt. Karetz Mitzapin Bava, and killing comes from the north. My mashma, where do you know this from? Matagim Rabbi Yosef, as Rabbi Yosef translated this pasuk in Yirmiyah. Malka Yoayav Mitzrayim. Egypt was a good king or kingdom. And Amin Ketulan Mitzrayim Yesin Allah. And killing nations from the north will come against it. Okay, that was just a translation of a word, Kartzu. There's a big discussion on why Rabbi Yosef is the one that always in Shas brings us the Targum. And some say that because Rabbi Yosef was blind, he wasn't allowed to say Baruch Shabbat because he couldn't read it. So that's why he was an expert in the Targum. I think Taisva somewhere says that that's not the pshat. It's nice, but it's not the pshat. because why is it not the pshat? I think he says that there's certain things that you're really allowed to say about it comes up. It happens to be that Yosef knew the Targum. Okay. Someone told me when Rabbi Marlow, Allah Shalom, was ill, so someone would read to him Mishnah Mikra, and he would say it along on Friday afternoon. As he would say it along, if there was a different nusach in the Targum, he would correct him. He would tell him, tell me the other nusach also. Yeah. Okay. How much did they cut it? I guess we're talking about shchita here. The Kohen Gadol was doing the shchita, but we're using this term killing it. Amar Ula B'Reib Shnayim. He would cut two of the simanim. There's the windpipe and the food pipe on the animal. We'd have to cut to sever the majority of them, of both of them. Rabbi Yechanan says B'Reib Shnayim. So Ula says, Rabbi Yechanan says, that is, you have to cut the majority of them. Because Rish Lakish says, if it says that the majority is good enough, so then why do you have to come and tell me the majority of one is enough and the majority of two is enough? By a bird, you have to sever one of the pipes. By the animal, you have to sever both of the pipes. And it says majority is enough. And then it says that the majority of one for the bird, majority of two. Why do you have to repeat that if it's majority is enough? So we say like this. Because we have a Mishnah in Yoma that says that they bring to the Kohen Gadol the Tamid, and he kills it, and someone else finishes the Shechita. And then the Kohen Gadol himself catches the blood. I could have thought that maybe in a regular case, so far we're saying that the Meirik, that someone has to complete the Shechita in order for it to be kosher. Imkain, the Gemara says, if that's what you're suggesting, that maybe, the Kohen Gadol is doing half, a little more than half of the Shechita. Someone else is going to finish it up. I could have thought that if that guy doesn't show up and finish it off, he has to be right there. Then it's going to be puzzle. So in Cain, if that's the case, if that's what you're suggesting, then that means that the Kohen Gadol isn't doing all the service of Yom Kippur. Because if the other person doesn't show up, it's puzzle. That means that the Kohen Gadol should have done it. Anything that would invalidate it has to be done by the Kohen Gadol. So how could you even suggest that that person has this consequence if he doesn't do it? So Utanan or Utanya or whatever the gear says here. Kol avodas Yom Kippur meaning ksher silaboy. On Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol has to do everything. So the Gemara says Hachi Kamer. Okay, now it says Yachal Ye Pasal Midrabanan. I could have thought that maybe by Shechita, in other words, in Hilchas Shechita, it's kosher even if you don't finish off the conclusion of the Shechita. You just did the majority. That would be good enough. But when it comes to a korban, I have to get all the blood. I could have thought there's a rabbinic law that you have to sever the whole head so that you should be able to get all the blood. So the Gemara says, to tell me that even by the korban it's enough to have just the majority. Then why do you have to do it? Right? So, mitzvah l'marek, yeah, it's just a mitzvah. It's not market. It's not market, but it's better if you do. Why? Because you want to get all the blood out properly. No, it's more than that. They have like water picks and all types of things. So you have to brush your teeth, you have to floss. So what's the water pick and all of that? It's a mitzvah. That's just extra stuff. So, okay. Yeah, that's this Gemara. We're about to start on something that's very, very important. Beer Tila. Explaining the words of davening. We say this every day, so pay attention to this. Abaya Misader Maracha Mishmei the Gemara V'Ali B'Dav B'Shal. Familiar with this? Abaya Misader Maracha. Sounds like he's setting up the fire. It must be a borrowed term because Misader Maracha means that he's telling us the arrangement. Maracha means an arrangement. He's organizing the arrangement. Oh. What's the verb? He listed the order. Okay. Abai listed the order in the name of the yeshiva. Mishmei the Gemara. Usually, Gemara means from tradition. So here he's just doing Mishmei the Gemara means from the Rabbanan from the people of the yeshiva, the Beis Medrash. But he does this according to Abishal. Why does it have to be according to Abishal? Because there's a machlekes regarding where the Keteris fits in. And Abishal is the one that does it his way, where the menorah is done before the Keteris. Yeah, so this only fits with Abishal. Okay. You ready? The arrangement of the large fire comes before the second fire. In other words, on the Mizbeah, there were two fires. Pyres. How do you pronounce that word? P-Y. Pyre? There were two pyres. There was one that was on the east and one that was on the west. The one that was on the east was the larger one. It's called Maracha Gedayla, and that was where the Karbanos were burned. One on the west, that was just for coals. They would use it for coals to take the coals up to bring into on a pan. They would bring it into the Heichal, and they would put the Keteris on it. that is in the heichal where the keteris was burned, they weren't burning wood. They had the coals, the smoke that would come out of the coals would only be the smoke of the keteris, not smoke of wood. That's what it smelled like a fire in there. No, it would smell like a pipe. It would smell like a keteris. It wouldn't smell like a fire. So where did they get the coals? So that was from the second fire. So when you're setting up in the morning, the fires, the larger one for the karbonis comes before the smaller one for the keteris. But then, after the keteris, after the second fire, they would go back and they would do the shnegas reitzim, the 2 slabs of wood that were put on the larger fire. It's very important, right? Those 2 slabs of wood. That was done by a kohen woman. We see the shnegas reitzim koydem mizisam mizbeach hapnimi. The 2 slabs of wood that was done before cleaning off the mizbeach hapnimi. That means they would have to go into the heichal and clean off the ashes from last night's, yesterday afternoon's keteris. They would clean it off before they would do the keteris. So here, they would put up the wood on the large fire, then they would go inside the heichal and do the dishon mizbeach hapnimi. The dishon mizbeach hapnimi kedem atav chamesh. And then he would go and clean out 5 of the 7 candles on the menorah. He would take out the empty wicks and the burnt wicks and all of that. Because it's supposed to be divided in half. And why 5? The Gemara at the end of today will say, why not 6? Why not? Okay. So after he does 5, then he goes to finish off the dama tamid. He has to sprinkle the blood of the tamid, but actually, it's not finishing off. He's actually shechting the tamid, receiving the blood and sprinkling it. But that's the main point, is a sprinkle. The dama tamid then he has to go back inside and clean out those other 2. Remember, because there's 7 candles, he only cleaned out 5. So he has to clean out the other 2. Once he cleans that out, then he does the keteris. Keteris, half of it was done in the morning, half of it was done in the afternoon. So this is the morning one. Keteris kedemis leivarim. Now remember, he just sprinkled the blood of the carbon tamid, but he didn't put the limbs up on fire. So now he has to go back out and do the limbs. Leivarim lemincha. Now the limbs are done prior to the meal offering that comes along with every carbon. That's a certain amount of flour. Isar and makebes. Umincha lachavitin. And the mincha comes before the carbon of the Kohen Gadol, which was also brought half in the morning, half in the afternoon. It was also a meal offering. Lachavitin lenusachin. Now he hasn't yet poured the wine on. So both meal offerings, the carbon meal offering and the Kohen Gadol's meal offering, come before the wine is being poured. And then he does, let's say it's Shabbos. So then he does the musaf. The musaf and the bezichin. If it's Shabbos, then he has to do also the bezichin. Bezichin are the spoonfuls of frankincense that are on the table of the showbread that have to be put on the altar. In the bezichin, those spoonfuls are done before the final sacrifice of the day, which is the afternoon carbon tamid. Yeah. I think so. We had a whole conversation going on for the people on the computer. We said, why do we say it every day? So Moshe says, because order is important. So, yeah. We mentioned before Rabbi Yosef, the Targum. One of the things over there, one of the things that place says is that anything that's a chiyuv, you're allowed to say by heart, even from the Torah. Anything that's a chiyuv, you're allowed to say by heart. He says, for example, well, Taisus doesn't say this, but Rabbeinu Yaina in Bracha says, for example, the keteris, not the karbonis that you say before davening, that's a chiyuv to recite. And it sounds like it's a chiyuv min ha'Torah to say karbanos. It sounds like from Rabbeinu Yonah. And which would come out that according to some shittas, davening is only rabbinic. The whole Shema is supposed to be deraisa. That's what we held. Deraisa. Shema in the morning, Shema at night is a deraisa. With an exception, there's a view thesis that we don't. But other than that, tefillah is a machlekes the Rambam and the Ramban. If it's deraisa every day, right? And according to the Rabbeinu Yonah, karbanos could be even stricter than. Yeah, in a lot of communities, karbanos is pushed aside because if you come late, it says in Shulchan Aruch, you skip it and you just start. The minyan is very important. But the Rebbe was, at least I don't know how far back it goes in Lubavitch. I know that the Hasidim today don't skip anything. No, don't skip. And if you look at people that skip because of time, if you skip it once, you skip it the rest of your life. You could be, 70 years old, and I said it once at my bar mitzvah, but after that, okay, yeah. I don't think so. That's a good point. So, Shenemar, how do we know this? That you conclude with this. It says, here's the pshat in this. On the morning carbon, after the morning carbon, you bring the other carbon, which tells me that you bring it after the morning carbon, not after the afternoon carbon. That tells me that the afternoon carbon doesn't get any more. That's so Allah Hashlim Kala Karbanis Kulam, on the morning carbon goes all of the other karbanis, not after the afternoon. By the way, there's 15 things here. Yeah, I was trying to put together. Yeah, that's interesting. But the Seder is also 15. I got the Shal Pesach. The Seder is 15. A lot of, when it comes to order, so we're finding at least these two examples. Yesterday we said that the mikveh washing the hands can't be 15 times. Remember we had that? Okay. Yeah. Amar Mar. Now we have to go through and explain. The Gemara is going to explain this quote from Abba Shal. Abba Shal is a Tana. And Abaya just arranged Abba Shal's opinion. Now Amar Mar is usually when we quote a brisa. I guess it's like Abaya. I guess we're considering it like a brisa. Otherwise we would say Gufa. Gufa is when we quote a memra of Amirat. Okay, we learned before. The large fire is arranged before the second fire for the Keteris. Minal, and where do you know this from? The Tanya was taught in a brisa. If you look at those psukim in Tzav, it seems like very beginning of Parshas Tzav, it looks repetitive. So it says, this is the oila that's brought on the fire on the Mizbeach, which was burning all night. And the fire on the Mizbeach was burning on it. Well, you already said the fire on the Mizbeach. Maikta means the fire. And the fire was burning on it. Zuma Rachashniya Shel Keteris. That's the second one, because there's two fires. That's what it says. I remember in fourth grade, I mentioned this Breslauer taught us we have to learn the Seder of the Karbanis. We also learned Parshas Vayikra and Parshas Tzav. I remember we were looking at these psukim, we're learning these psukim, and someone said, why does it have to say it again? So he'd encourage us to bring Svarim in. He says, does anyone here have a Torah Tamim Chamesh? And someone raised his hand. So he said, bring it tomorrow and we'll discuss. So then the boy brought it in and brought it up to the Rebbe's desk. The Torah Tamim quotes all the Gemaras. He does more than that, but one of the things that he does. Okay, so the Gemara says, 1 second. So you're telling me that the order is based on a double expression, an extra expression in the pasuk, And therefore, it tells me that the larger fire is before the Keteris fire. Maybe it's the other way. How do you know which one is referring to which fire? It says it's two fires, but how do you know which one comes first? It says Mistabra Maracha Gedela Adifa Shken Kaprasim Ruba. Well, logically, the larger fire is more significant because it has more sacrifices that are burnt in it. Where it says Adraba Maracha Shnia Adifa Shken Machnisim En Lefnim. This is a quantity discussion. So no, the quality of this one. Look at the other one. The coals go inside the heichal, the ketores. This is much more significant. When it says afilu hachi kaparasim meruba adifa. No, the more sacrifices that are brought in it, that's better. Diva yisema another pshat. Let's say there's not enough wood, there's not enough coals on the second fire. Are you not allowed to go back to the first fire to take coals from there? You are allowed to. So if that's the case, so you're telling me that that fire goes in and therefore that should be first. It turns out that we have cases where the larger fire also goes in. So it really doesn't have such a priority. That's right. Yeah. In general, the Rabbi Yosef Engel, wrote this beautiful svarim. I don't know a lot about him, but anyway, it's like spectacular svarim. In one of the svarim, he writes about if quantity is more significant than does that outweigh quality? And he brings Gemaras, like, so he has this way of taking a philosophical concept and then like going through Shas and showing you here and there. So one of the things the Rebbe brings is from Igeres HaTshuva. Right? Igeres HaTshuva, the Rebbe quotes this Rebbe Spengel, and he brings Igeres HaTshuva. It says that small averas add up. The Rebbe says that the Algebra writes that the neshama is like a rope, which is made out of thin strands. He says that small averas are cutting like the thin strands of the rope, and kares is like cuts the whole. So he says, but small averas add up to large averas because it's like cutting the. So this was a proof that the quantity is just like the quality in the negative way. That a lot of small averas add up. Okay. Mitzvahs? Sounds like it. It's always more with the Mida Taiva, with the Pasuk. Okay. Okay, so we got the order of the two fires. Now, after the two fires goes back to setting up the wood on the first fire. Minalan, how do you know that that's the order? The Kayan burns wood on it every morning. He burns wood on it, on the large fire, but not on the other fire. Then obviously you had to set up the other fire. And that's what the Gemara is explaining. Is that how do you know that you have to go from the large fire to the small fire back to the other fire to set up the wood? It's because you set up the wood on it, which means that not on its friend, which means that you have to have set up that one. It has to be existing. Okay. The Gemara says, but we need to say that you have to set it up. That's not an extra word. The Gemara says, it says twice in the pasuk aloud. Okay. The arrangement of the setting up the two slabs of wood come before the cleaning of the inner altar. It's the small mizbeach that's in the heichal. That's the keteris is usually brought up. It's only for keteris. And the keteris is only brought one other place in the Kodesh HaKodashim once a year. So, when it comes to the wood, it says, "Uvir ala hakayin eitzim babayker babayker." The wood is put on in the morning. And when it comes to the ketores, it says, "Behetiva yasaneris yakdirena." Every morning, when they clean out the candles, that's when you should set up the ketores. So what we're doing here is we're talking about cleaning off the ketores altar, where over there it says babayker. So both of them have the same time slot. On the calendars, on the Google calendar. Yeah, you try to put things at the same time, like the side by side. But both of them say babayker. So they're both there in the same time slot. It's better the machshir, which is the preparation for the ketores, is better than the actual preparation of the altar. Preparation is setting up the wood to be able to get the coals that you're going to use for the ketores. That's the machshir. The Gemara says, machshir ma'niu. What are you telling me, machshir? Preparation. Shnei gezriyetzim, the two slabs of wood. This is the problem. You said that the coals that you get for the ketores come from the second fire. Now you're explaining why you have to set up the wood first because you need the wood for the ketores. But the wood goes on the larger fire. And you're telling me that's why it comes first, because that's preparation for the ketores. It's not even part of the ketores. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, I know that this wood isn't specifically for the ketores, but it is wood, and wood is used to burn to get the ketores. So it comes first. Ravina says, well, I'm not sure if Ravina is telling me a brand new pshat. Ravina says, you didn't finish up the maracha, so you have to go back and do that. You have to set the wood up. Ravashi's pshat fits with something with what we just learned. Remember we said that if there's not enough coal on the second fire, that you go back to the larger fire? Well, there we are. You go back to the larger fire. That wood that you're setting up, even though it's just your backup, but nevertheless, that's a machshir for the ketores. Okay, so the setting up the wood comes before cleaning off the altar. The cleaning off of the altar is before the cleaning out of the lamps, the 5 lamps. My time, why? What's the reason? Isn't that great? We know this for a fact, but we don't know why. Rava has a pshat. Abai and Rava are friends. Rava says, Rish Lakish. It follows the opinion of Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish ain't mavir ala mitzvahs. Rish Lakish says you can't pass over mitzvahs. So we're talking about why are you doing the cleaning of the altar before the menorah? Why are you doing the preparation, the cleaning of the ketores altar before the menorah? It says because you're not allowed to pass over a mitzvah. When you enter into the room, to the chamber, to the kodesh, the mizbeach pagabresha, you're going to reach the mizbeach first. Let's read the brisa that says this, and then we'll go back to explain. The Tanya will start in a brisa. Shulchan b'tzafin mashach min hakesel shtei amas u'mechza. The table is on the north. It's 2.5 tefachim away from the north wall. The chamber was going from, you walk in on the east, you're going towards the west. And the north, which would be your right, that would have the table. And Menorah B'Darim Meshuchim and Hakoshes Damas. The menorah is on the south, on your left, also 2.5 amas away from the wall. The Mizbeach was in the center. The Va'imid Be'emtza, it's standing in the center. Mashach Klape Chutz Kima. It's a little bit pulled forward towards the east, towards the door, which means when you come in, that's going to be would be like a segel. You have the two kalim, the menorah, the shulchan and the menorah, and then down, and then towards the front would be the mizbeach. So that means that you're going to reach the Mizbeach first, so you're not supposed to pass over a mitzvah. Why don't you put them all together? So keeping the ksivis, because the pasuk says that the menorah is opposite the shulchan, which means that they should actually see each other. It means so you pull the mizbeach a little forward so it doesn't interrupt between the shulchan the Kodesh Kadashim is on the west. And the western wall is the back wall. It's not the back. It's probably the back wall of the base of Mikdash or the back wall of the Harabayas. The back wall of the Harabayas. No. From the east. Right? That confuses us a little bit. Like Columbus, he went he got to the west, got to the east. Okay, the West Indies. Amarava, Shmamina midrish lakish abure dara atitafta aser. Echi avid midara latitafta. Rava says, based on what we just learned from Rish Lakish, that you're not supposed to pass over a mitzvah. So you're not supposed to pass over the tefillin shel yad or the tefillin shel reish. Now, what does this mean exactly? So Rashi says that don't put on the tefillin shel reish first, because the shel yad is closer. It's right here. The shel reish is up there. So put on the shel yad first. You touch your arm first as you're moving your hand up, right? So your arm is. Now, Taisus has an issue with Rashi's pshat. Taisus says that is not the reason why you put the shel yad on first. The shel yad goes on first because the Gemara tells us, Kshartam, and then that's the order of the pasuk. And there's something else Taisus doesn't quote, but it says Kolzman Shbeni Necha Yushnayim, but you're always supposed to have the shel yad on if you have the shel reish. So Rabbeinu Tam says a different pshat. We're talking about when you're taking off the tefillin, that you should set it up in a way that when you put on the tefillin tomorrow, you should not touch the shel reish first. You always put the shel yad closer to the front. If you had a bag that you would put one on top of another, so you would put the shel reish on the bottom and the shel yad on the top. You have to make sure that you do that so that you don't pass over the mitzvah because you have to put the shel yad on. So our bags, they made them side by side, but I don't know if that's how the bags were in the olden days. The bags was a bag, so which one was on top, which one was on the bottom? Oh, the canister container. Yeah. From the writings, I assume that's how it was done. Because for us, which one do I touch first? When I turn to the zipper, so at the end of the zipper, my hand—that's where my hand is. I'm close to the shel reish, but the opening is it's a little confusing. Rabbeinu Eliyahu in this case says that it's talking about when you kiss the tefillin, or when you adjust the tefillin. It says you're only supposed to be the mashmish, you're supposed to be adjusting, touching. So you do the shel yad first before the shel reish because your arm goes like that. I guess we have three pshatim here, but we see this from Rish Lakish. Now, in the drush, the Darshanim, they say that the Maisa mitzvahs come before the speculation of why you do them. You do the hand first. The hand is the Maisa mitzvah. First, do what you're supposed to do. Then you want to discuss it and think about it. That's the shel reish that comes later. And after all said and done, whether you found the pshat, you didn't find the pshat, you take off the shel reish and you still have the shel yad on. Yeah, that I saw in Rabbi Meal's. Okay. The 5 candles come before the shechting and the sprinkling of the blood of the tamid. And then you go back and you do the 2 candles afterwards, right? Because you have to get to all 7. My time, what's the reason why it's done like this? Amar Abaya, Ahu, Babaker, the Shnei Gizriyitzim, V'lei Tzrichi Shadinu Lahacha. Abaya says that by the wood, it said, Baruch, Babaker, what was the pasuk by the wood? It said, Uvir Le'akain Eitzim Babaker. Abaya says that Babaker wasn't necessary. So, I wonder why it wasn't necessary. We sort of used it, but the Gemara is going to mention that later. So, if it's not necessary, now I have 2 extra babaikers. So, what am I going to do with those 2 babaikers? He says like this: you throw them over to this. Shadinu lahacha. You throw them over to this. Chad shadinu latavis chamis neiros. V'lekadmi l'damatamid. Chad shadil damatamid and lekadmi latavis neiros. So, yeah, the Gemara is going to explain this a little bit more. So we'll read a little bit more. But the translation of this is: if I have 2 babaikas that are extra, one I apply to the 5 candles, which makes it take the precedent, and then the other one I apply to the damatamid, which makes that take precedent, and then afterwards I'll do the 2 candles afterwards. So the Gemara explains: one of them I apply to the 5 candles, the kadmil damatamid, that it should come before the damatamid, before the carbon tamid, the shechting and the sprinkling of the blood. The hacha tflasa, the hacha trey, because now I have 3 babaikers. What does it say? It says, "Es a keves echad taseh babaiker." Oh, 1 second. That's that. By the carbon tamid, it only says babaiker once. So if I apply one of the wood babaikers, now I have 2. But by the candles, it says babaker beitiva yasaneris. Now we said that before. We said that was talking about the mizbeach of the ketairas. Babaker beitiva yasaneris yakdirena. Ketairas that was talking about the ketairas. But nevertheless, it says it's associated with the candles. Babaker beitiva yasaneris. So the candles have 2 babaikers, and now I have an extra babaiker from the wood. So I put that over to the candles. 2 plus 1 is 3. But the carbon tamid had 1 babaiker. I give it an extra babaiker. That makes 2. So 3. This is the morning of the morning of the morning, which means it's earlier than just the 2 morning. Okay. Another one I put for which we said, the carbon tamid gets an extra babaiker, which makes it 2, which takes it before the candles. 1 second. But the candles had 2. You see, the candles are divided into 2 parts, 5 and 2. So the 5 part is getting 3 because it started off with babaiker, and we throw on an extra babaiker. It has 3. The carbon tamid, which only had 1, we throw an extra one, has 2. So we know the 5 comes before the 5 candles comes before the damatamid, and then the second candles has 2 also. So why do you have the carbon tamid before the 2 candles? Avagav the hacha trey, even though they're equal now, but nevertheless mechaper other. The carbon oila is a kapara. What is the carbon tamid? Tamid is an oila. It's a kapara for anyone that neglected a mitzvah saseh or a lavanitic laseh. So he doesn't get prohibitions that he doesn't get malchus for. So you can it's atoned for the carbon tamid is atonement. Amalei Rav Papa la Abaya. Rav Papa says to Abaya, so I see what you're doing here. Rav Papa is a student of Abaya and Rava. He says, I see what you're doing. You have 15 things that you made in order for. It's all in order. Maracha Gedaila, Maracha Shniya, Shnei Gizri Eitzim, Dishim Mizbeach HaPnimi. We're holding by Hatavas Heiner, so that's perfect. Number 5 is the 5 candles. That's a perfect siman. But then number 6 is the blood of the carbon tamid, and number 7 are the 2 candles. Isn't that great? Oh, so wait for that. The Gemara's going to say so. The Gemara's going to say that too. Yeah, that would explain right now that. Yeah, the problem is we're using numbers for different things here because we have two extra words babaker, and we're dealing with 5 candles and 2 candles. Now the 5 candles end up with 3 babakers. The 2 candles only have 2 babakers, and the carbon tamid, which is in the center, also has 2 babakers. So Rav Papa says like this: why don't you put one of the babakers on number 4, item number 4, which was cleaning off the altar, which was before the menorah. Remember, I said the altar was to the front, so you had to do that first. Put one babaker over there. B'nekadme l'damatamid, and that will tell me that it comes before the damatamid. The hachat loss of a hachat tray, and then because that will have 3, and the damatamid only has 2. The chad damatamid then ekadam latavas chamis, and then do the sacrifice before the candle. See what's happening with the candles, that we're dividing it in half, and in the center of it we're throwing the damatamid. We're doing the shchita. The dishon mizbeach happening was before both of them, all 3 of them now. So Rav Papa is suggesting that do the damatamid right after the dishon mizbeach hapnimi, and then do the candles together. Now you'll ask me, why would the damatamid come before the candles? By the candles, it only says 2 according to this, because you already used up the extra babakers. Well, mechaper adif. The carbon comes before the candles, like you said. The kapara comes first. The Gemara says, 1 sec. How are you going to split up the candles where we know that you need to split up the candles? You have to do half and half. You can't do all the candles together. According to Rish Lakish, that says it's not really significant the way you divide up the candles. The whole point of that is just to show that you're being active and that there's activity going on. So you want everyone to know, oh, we're doing something here. So you go in and you go out, and it's to show that there's we're cleaning out the menorah. So but Rabbi Yochanan has a different shot. Rabbi Yochanan says that the candles have to be divided into 2. Why? Because it says Babaker Betivas and Neir, so you have to actually split it in half. According to Rav Papa, it's not going to fit. Okay. Amalei Ravina Ravashi, Hi Babaker the Eitzumim Yaser. We mentioned this. Babaker of the wood, that you said that it's extra. And because of that, you're going to apply one of those babakers to the 5 candles. One of them you're going to apply to the damatamid. It's not extra. We need it. It tells me that babaker tells me that I have to put the wood on the maracha gedela before I go back to the maracha ketores. Amalei v'lav yukimna oleh v'lei al chaverta machlal b'yisla chaverta. The kamarachman nakadmu l'maracha shnei shel ketores. 1 second. Yeah, I thought this meant that the wood is put on the the large fire before it's put on the small fire, before you add wood to the small fire. Now, so the that it has to come before the other fire. So he tells him back, but we already said that the word aleha tells me that the other fire was lit. But that doesn't tell me that this is totally extra. I'm not sure. How does it read in the English there? What do you have? Oh, you have something. You have something. Yeah. Which implies that its counterpart already exists when the two blocks are placed on the large fire. Hence, the double mention in the morning in the two blocks passage is indeed superfluous. But why is that superfluous? See above note 23. That's the wrong way, right? Exodus. No, that's not what I mean. So Rav Ashi said to Ravina in reply, did we not establish that the opposite is true? Oh. Arranging the two blocks of couple should proceed. Oh. He was suggesting. He was suggesting that we're going to put the wood on the Maracha Gedola before we do anything for the Maracha Shniya. So he tells him back, but that's not true, because we said Aleha on it, but not on its friend, which means the other one needed to be set up. So that was his answer. That was his question. We're saying, but I needed to tell me that I do the whole Maracha Gedola before I do anything with the Maracha Shniya. He tells him back, but that's not true, because Aleha tells me that you have to light that also. Which means that the Babaker is actually extra, which means I could throw it onto, divide it up and put it onto the other thing. Well, this doesn't really answer the question, but why is there 5 and not, why do we divide it and we do the 5 first and not the 2? It says, given the Aschalbu Abid Rive, once you started, then we do the majority. So it says we're going to need to divide it. But the Gemara says, V'navid Shis. So if you're going to do the majority, why don't you do 6? Because we need 2 left over. Well, it could have done 4 and 3. And that would have covered it as well. I don't know the answer to that. Okay. The 2 candles come before the Keteris. That's clear in the passage. You use Ravenika. That could be. No. It says we do 5 first because it should be 5 first because if majority of the says the money we did why don't you say the money we did also? Oh. So that's okay. Okay. Oh. So okay. So okay, Kedaris Leivarim. Why does the Kedaris come before the limbs? The Tan Yuktam Davish Nemer by Babaker Babaker or Davish Lei Nemer by Alabaker Chabilvad. The Karban Tamid only says Baker once, and the Kedaris says Baker twice. So the Kedaris comes before the Ivarim. Ivarim Lamincha, the limbs comes before the meal offering with the Karban. Tani Minayin Shlei Davar Kaidim Lutamid Shel Shachar. How do you know nothing comes before the Tamid in the morning? Talmud Laima Varach Ala Hayla. Because it says that you set up on the fire the oila. That means the oila comes up first. And then, so what do we want to do with that? Avarim come before the mincha. You put on the limbs, the oila go before the meal offering. The oila, which is the actual sacrifice, that goes before the meal offering, which comes together with it. Mincha lechavitim. The meal offering comes before the Kohen Gadol's meal offering. Oila, but this is in the old Gemaras is a little bit of something that's not clear. We're actually quoting a pasuk now. The pasuk is in Rashi. It says lahakriv isha laHashem oila umincha zevach v'nasachem par yom b'yom. So what's getting quoted over here is oila umincha. You see, first I do the oila, and then I do the mincha. So that means that the mincha of the oila comes right after the oila, and then I do the chavitin. The chavitin l'nesachim. Why do I do chavitim and then the wine? He says shum mincha, because remember you said oila umincha, so it means all the minchas that go along. Unesachim l'musafin, and the wine comes before the musafim. That's because it says zevach unesachim. The pasuk says first I finish the sacrifice, and then I do the nesachim, and nothing else in the center. I don't do the musaf in between those. Musaf and the bazichan, the musaf comes before the spoons. But Tanya bazichan kaidin the musaf. 1 second, I have a brisa that says the spoons of frankincense come before the musaf. It says tanaihi. That's a machlekes. So Amar Abaye mistabrik mandam musaf and kaidin the bazichan. Abaye says, Abaye is making the decision. He's the one that's saying this. That probably the musaf comes before the spoons. Lav mi amrit babaker. Do we not say that babaker means that you do it earlier? Lahaktim. Hachanami bayayim leacher. When it says that bayayim Shabbos, the musaf, the bazichan, bayayim, it says by the lechem upon him, it says bayayim Shabbos, Shabbos. That means that you do it later in the day. That means the bazichan come after the musaf. My time of the Amar bazichan kaidmen l'musafin. What's the opinion that says the other way? Gamar chuka mechavitin. They learn exer shavet. So the chavitin are first. So too the bazichan would come first. Imei hasam gamar ligmrei kula milsa hasam. So then we should learn that the nesachim should also come first. Lachani bayayim lacher. So this would tell me the bayayim tells me that you do it later. That you do the bazichan after the nesachim. That's for sure. That would be for sure. Then the question is, if bazichan come before musaf, so that's a machlekes. Okay. Shekayach. Okay. Sunday. We'll learn on Sunday. We'll learn this stuff.